Welcome to Exploring the Metaverse, Episode 7. Today we're going to speak with Arie Trouw. He's the co-founder of a company called XYO, and over there they're working on the future of our data. Now, particularly location data, but he was speaking about all manner of validity, certainty, and value, and building trust in information that we already use and give freely. So let's get into this interview. Arie, thank you so very much for joining me here on this Exploring the Metaverse podcast. It is my absolute pleasure. And tell me about your background, sir. Tell me about yourself and what is it that has you involved in the metaverse?
I've been fascinated with computers for a long time. I got my first computer in 1979 in third grade. So I've been programming and learning how to use computers since the old Radio Shack days, where you go there and you old computer, if you remember.
Oh yeah,
the computer centers, the Radio Shack Computer Center. That's my favorite place on earth when I was a kid. And so I did that. I ran some bulletin boards early on.
You ran the BBS? Sorry,
Yeah, I had a BBS. I had what's called the sidewalk. I had up to 4 lines. It was in Cleveland at the time, because I moved to Cleveland from South Africa when I was 7 years old. So that's why I was in Cleveland. And so I got into the bulletin board system, and it's kind of interesting. It's almost like early internet. You ended up with this like WhisperNet thing where email would go back and forth. At night when they connected to each other and stuff like that. So I kind of see the whole evolution from like the beginning of the computers to networking to the internet and kind of where we are now. And that's one of the reasons why the metaverse fascinates me. And I think it's grossly misused as a term by many people out there. So it's an interesting space.
I really resonate with those words. I mean, I haven't followed quite the technical professional path, but hearing you speak about that really elicits such wonderful memories of a beautiful time in this space. And you have this incredible webpage that I have read through a couple of times. It still confuses me. And I don't know how to pronounce it. Did you just say the abbreviation, the XYO, or is it like ZO or ZIO?
We call it XYO because it stands for XY Oracle, because it's a location and time oracle, basically, to connect real world physical things or events to the blockchain and to online data. It's I would say I'm a dataist, and so the connection to data and how data is formed and that sort of a thing is kind of a passion for me.
So you guys, according to the very first statement here on the webpage, you and your team, I would say, is the validation of data. And it sounds like you're collecting accurate data, like to a complete layperson. Is this the kind of data that people are really scared of? Is this the kind of data that everyone's warned that they should protect and keep safe? Or are we talking about something a little deeper? This is the geospatial data. What does that mean? I really don't know anything about that.
Well, so it's all data is information and data points, and when you connect it to the real world, where it happened and when it happened matters, right? So you can say like Arie won a tennis match. Mm-hmm. Well, against whom? Where was it? When was it? That's what matters, right? So, but just saying that I won a tennis match at some point in time in the history of the universe isn't that interesting. And so as soon as you start doing things that are in the real world, the coordinate system is XYZT, right? And so you have to kind of like say, well, where did this happen? Or can I pin this piece of data to that? So that's really what we do is we try to collect data from the real world and we try to pin it to the XYZT coordinates. And we can use those, especially the chains of these things that we use, to help validate or to provide certainty of it. Because one of the difficulties is there's a difference between accuracy and certainty. A lot of people they conflate the two. And so accuracy is something which is measured by like the sensors or the video camera or whatever it is that you're collecting stuff with, can affect the accuracy. But certainty is more like, did it actually happen, or did it, is the thing which is reporting it being Byzantine, or is it being
a proof?
Kind of like a proof, yeah. And so there's certain physics or certain different things of data that you can use to get that. There's a reputation, but there's also, like, for example, if I try to report something from 2 different locations that are 500 miles apart, but I'm reporting it 1 minute apart, right? So for me to have traveled 500 miles would be impossible. And so there's a lot of heuristics you can look at in the data to be able to say, well, the odds of this being true is a lot less. It's kind of like a court case, right? So you look at all the different facts in there, and you're like, well, if you put them all together, do they actually make sense? And that's really where the validation part of our data comes in. It's not about validating whether or not the thermostat was correct, but was it actually at the place where it says it was? Or, like, for example, was it indoors? Was it outdoors? Like, that might matter. If you ask the temperature, what's the temperature in Florida right now? Indoors, I'm sure it's a lot cooler than it is outdoors. So there's little things like that that matter.
Oh, wow. So this obviously has so many implications in a virtual three-dimensional space. And when something like this is really in its infancy, you know, in the forefront of the next generation of the internet and how we use the internet, I'm almost overwhelmed with the seemingly infinite possibilities that this kind of information could have, and how you're sort of the central, or at least one of the undermining platform level technologies, and you know, code background, you know, code bases that it's really going to run or be a part of running the entire future of how people communicate and how we perhaps interact, right, in that that virtual sense. And so how would you say that this type of technology relates to the work in building the upcoming, or as some would say, the Web 3.0, which is kind of here and maybe not here and a work in progress?
Well, yeah, I actually like the term that was coined fairly recently that calls it Web 5.0, because there's,
Hmm.
Web 2.0 and Web 3.0 put together is Web 5. And so there's a lot of things that you don't have to have, because I often think of Web 3 as a centralized ledger. Kind of
Yeah.
like Ethereum is a centralized ledger. It's a single blockchain that everybody comes to consensus on, which has a lot of value, especially for currencies or for balances on ledgers. It makes sense, but it's got some obvious performance issues and stuff like that. So the web, like, there's a lot of things you can store in a non-ledger, especially if they're separate ledgers. If each person has their own ledger, for example, like in XYO, we each have our own proof of origin chain that we sign with our address and our signature, and then you can go and validate that this sequence was true when it was there, or even a hash for the JSON. So all of our data is stored in this JSON form, and then we hash it. So in the future, if I signed this hash, I don't have to store the entire block of data. I can just say that, I saw this hash, and then later on I can show the data that goes along with it. So there's a lot of things you can do that's cryptographic, that's not necessarily a Web3 centralized blockchain sort of a thing. So, and you can store those in any database you want. You can store them in a Web2 database, because when you pull them out, you can still revalidate whether or not that hash is correct, or you can revalidate whether or not that signature is correct. So there's a lot of cryptographic development that can run on Web2 infrastructure, but it kind of has the Web3 decentralization, where you don't have to have an authority go and validate it for you. I can look at the data and tell you if it's true or not without having to go ask Google
Yeah.
or an authority to tell me if it's true or not.
Does that make it a bit of an open source circumstance where a multitude of entities can utilize this for their projects and to help grow future projects?
Well, that's what the goal is to make it like a open peer-to-peer system where, anybody who wants to can store data in this structure and with this protocol on their servers. They can store it if they want to in smart contracts, because they get very expensive at a certain point. But wherever they store it, if I were to provide you that data, you can independently verify whether that data is accurate or not, or what the origin of that data is and where it came from. So the provenance of that data is important. So being able to do that without having to go to an authority is really convenient. Otherwise, you always kind of question, like, was data removed? Was it changed? Once you have these blocks of data, you can't remove data without anyone knowing about it. You can remove it, but all it means is that the hash that you have is no longer retrievable, but the hash is still there.
Yeah.
So so data permanence is a big part of it, where the proof of the fact that the data existed in a certain structure at a certain point in time stays there forever, and you can't undo that history. That's what's interesting to me, and I think the metaverse aspect of that becomes interesting. Like history, for example, in the real world. If we assume that we're in a simulation, the history, what happened yesterday, it's just, we may have lost the ability to like review it because we don't have a video of it or whatever it is. We didn't capture everything.
There's no record, yeah.
But whatever happened yesterday in time did happen. It's just a fact. I mean, it doesn't change. It's immutable. So history is immutable. our perception of history might be mutable. Our record of history might be mutable, but the actual thing that happened yesterday is completely immutable. And that's the idea of XYO, is to try to make a system that can take the world and history and make a representation of it, or observation of it, that's as immutable as possible. So that way we don't have to wonder, well, did we change our perception of it? Did we rewrite history? What was it actually like? So that having that bridge be as authentic without having to have trust in the person who's reporting it
Wow.
is important.
So what kind of project is that being worked into? Is that something that's actively being developed into like a consumer end or an end user level product? Are you partnered with any particular developers or companies right now that are helping to push this into even more practical situations?
Well, a lot of the earlier uses are things like, for example, going and verifying stuff in the real world. So we've had partners where they ask, is a store open, or is a product on a shelf somewhere? And then you can have multiple people go and take a photo of that, and they each verify it independently, but they don't know the other ones are verifying it. And you can store those and put each of those people, they cryptographically sign the fact that they've recorded that data point, so that way you can use the reputation also to see if it's true or not. And if you have a certain number of people who actually reported the same information, then you can say, well, I paid to be on this end cap at Target, but my product's actually somewhere in the middle of the aisle on the bottom shelf, and so I'm unhappy. So there's a lot of decentralized like micro digging that kind of goes on with our coin app, where people can go and collect data for us as when they're asked for it, and then that data can be used without the party who's asking for the question even knowing who the person is who is collecting the data for them.
In a safe way.
In a safe way, yeah.
Yeah. No, I think this just has such like creative, wide-reaching implications for so many different industries. It's really fascinating. I mean, I feel, as much of a layperson as ever when you speak about this technology, and I find that exciting. That there's this really sort of deep avenue, and I really want to try to express to the average listener, to the average person, like I like to pick on my mom lovingly, like to use her as an example. If this is a subject that she's never heard of and, never been exposed to, perhaps other than the most rudimentary of levels, I just want to paint that picture for myself and for anyone listening of how this applies to them and how this is a beneficial technology for our neighbors and for our friends and family, and how this is going to help to push us forward in a technological sense in a way that benefits regular people.
Well, I think a good analogy for it is if you take a whiteboard, for example. Everyone knows how to use a whiteboard. They write on a whiteboard with whiteboard pens. But imagine if every time you erase the whiteboard, the hash or the image of the previous thing is stored somewhere. So you can always go back and see what was erased, and you can hit. It's almost like a web browser. You can go back.
Or the Wayback Machine.
The Wayback Machine, yes. And so, like in our case, we store all those hashes at least, and we can optionally store the actual picture that was there. But then we can see if somebody deleted one of those things. Was it actually there? So you can see like this permanent history, like
you can analyze it and break it apart and use all the different bits of data for your own unique purposes.
Right. And also, like you can share it with somebody else, and they'll know that the thing which you gave them is true because it's cryptographically solid. You don't have to. You can say, well, maybe it was a different whiteboard, but this data chain, the sequence that's there is permanent once you've done the blockchain on it, and with the previous hash system on there. There's also a way to have more than one witness at a place have them actually witness the same thing and co-sign it. So there's a multi-signature version of it's interesting as well. A simple application that we've done a couple of times as demonstrations is treasure hunts. Like, say for example, you're at a conference or whatever it is, and a person has to go and they have to go and collect all the different points. And each point there's a clue for the next point. Often what happens at a Comic-Con is when if they say the QR codes, when the first person goes through there, they take a picture of all the QR codes, and they go and they just post them, and then everybody else has a picture of the QR code, and they don't have to actually go do it, and they can find it really easily. So this solves that to some degree, where like we have a device called a Sentinel X, which is a little card that's got an NFC chip inside of it. And that NFC chip, every time you scan it, it generates a new cryptographic signature. So I can go, if we put these cards, for example, in a conference, and there's 10 different places you have to go to, I have to go and actually contact each one of those cards by phone to get the data off of it, and it will actually sign that data for me. And so if I take that data and I send it to you to try and cheat, we'll have the same block. And then at the end, when we turn it in, I'll be able to look at that and say, well, these two blocks are identical. So one of you guys are cheating. I don't know who it is, so I'll just disqualify both of you. So if you go and you scan all these, and so you have to have 10 unique blocks, but they're all signed and tied to the location which you're supposed to be in. So it can solve a lot of those issues where you use math and you use cryptography to actually prevent cheating, as opposed to watching people or observing people with cameras, or making sure that they don't post things or whatever it is.
Wow. I feel like this is so important. Like, I feel like this is building the foundation of trust. I have a blind faith personally in the concept of the metaverse and, virtual and augmented reality spaces. I really just, I see it as inevitable. You don't have to sell me, and not that you are, or anyone, but I think that this is the type of back end technology that really allows people to step into something that they might be uncomfortable with, knowing with a far greater degree of certainty that what we're participating in is authentic, and that it's real, and that it's valuable. And I look at those everyday propositions, like a person going shopping or a person exchanging a conversation with each other, and to have that trust, I think, is really going to be a big hurdle in adoption for these kinds of technologies, and for us moving forward. Did you think that's accurate? Is that a good representation of what it is that you're saying?
Yeah. I think that in the metaverse example, I think there's two things which are kind of problematic, or if it's solved to get it to go there. One is that trust aspect, right? Where, like, where's this data coming from? Is it actually valid? Am I interacting with the things I'm interacting with?
Yeah, because I think people are worried about like scammers and stuff like that, and I really love the fact that this is so true. And when we talk about the ledger being associated with the data, I think that's fantastic. So,
the other thing also is openness, right? So, like, if you have to have some sort of a system where people can look at the data and they can use it regardless of which party they are, as where most APIs and most data structures right now are proprietary. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you're using the metaverse on on Zuckerberg's VR goggles. Okay, well, he has his own data set, and then you might have a metaverse that's Google's thing, and you might have World of Warcraft as a metaverse, whatever it is, and they're all completely independent. They're separate little metaverses. So I think one of the challenges is to make a unified metaverse, and the closest thing we have right now is the internet, right? Yes. We have the standard protocol where it's like HTTP. You go to the website, you have this browser. It's very two-dimensional, and it's very early on in what the whole metaverse thing is. But as we build out three-dimensional graphics and websites, we build out more performant technologies in there. That kind of already is a metaverse. People right now escape into the internet,
absolutely,
from their current lives.
Exactly.
And so, like, the metaverse is here. It's just a small child. So the question is, well, what's this small child going to grow into? And if we don't parent it very well, it could go sideways pretty quickly.
Wow. Yeah, very well said. Very well said, Arie. Are you working particularly on any of those metaverses, any niche projects, or any particular aspects that you'd like to discuss?
Well, we have our own XYO World, for example. We have these NFTs that we have on there, and they kind of define quad keys. So we have a mapping system where people can get those NFTs and potentially use those NFTs to change the rules of some of the games. So we are kind of working on a basis to be able to have dApps run into it. So we have dApps on our system, but then being able to have those dApps interact with each other, or to polymorph depending on where they are, and then even potentially having like these different locations have different rules or different heuristics that are controllable by the people who own them or who vote on them, and that sort of a thing. So we are building these Lego pieces basically that can be used for some of the metaverse type things. I'm much more fascinated on the data side of things. I think many people, like back to like Meta and Zuckerberg, they're much more fascinated by VR and the presentation layer, making avatars for people, for example, or making AI for the NPCs to run around and do things. Where to me, it's what's the fabric on which all this runs,
Yeah.
and where does all this get stored? What's the database basically for a metaverse, and how do you make a database that's scalable and also resilient to attack? Because in theory, if the universe as we're in right now is a database, can that database get corrupted? Can it be altered by somebody who is sufficiently advanced to be able to alter that fabric which our system's running in? So that's what's going to happen to the metaverses if they're not robust. They're going to end up tearing. You're going to tear the fabric
Well,
of your metaverse, and
and
then
they do all the time, right? We're always hearing about different data breaches and hacks into different companies. I mean, I just got an email this morning from my Plex server telling me that I need to change my password there. I mean, these things are real, and they're happening like on a daily basis. And they're not only are they happening, but they're costing millions and millions and millions of dollars to regular people, to corporations, investors, and the like. So how it's just interesting to me, like how we can continue to build this up to make it into like an end user experience with accurate foundations. And what do you think is going to be, the best part of this improvement that you're basically adding? Like, what's the best part of having that pure and true and accurate foundation for everyday experiences? Because I don't necessarily think we're going to go right. This whole world is just going to jump into a three-dimensional sense. I really believe that our smartphones and our current web browsers are going to usher us through into the future.
Yeah, we're getting there already really fast. You have like augmented reality on your phone. There's apps you can hold up. You can see the night sky and the different stars there for that data. So we're definitely getting to some of those presentation layers, but the hurdles are like data breaches, for example. And one of my solutions for data breaches is don't actually have security. So it's like to me, security through transparency is much better security than security through
Yeah.
obfuscation. So it's if people can see it, but they can't change it. So for example, like if I sign something with my cryptographic signature, my address, and I give it to you, you can go and change the data if you want to, but it's going to break the signature, and there's no way for you to edit my data without everyone knowing you edited it. So it's completely secure for me to give it to you. I don't have to worry about, like, for example, if I give you a Word document with an article in there, you can go and edit that Word document and pass it off as your own. Now, but no one will know because there's no way to tell that Word document's been broken. So in a situation like this, where you have to make it transparent that you've actually altered something when you get it, makes it so that you can't actually steal it, you can't actually change it. And so to me, making security stronger and stronger, basically building a thicker wall or a stronger safe, it's never gonna work at the end because hackers are getting better and all those sort of. So that's why cryptography has gotten such a big focus now, because cryptography it's unbreakable. Yes, you can still socially engineer people into giving you their private keys, but that's a different issue. But it's not as scary as like a safe where someone can break into it or those sorts of things.
I couldn't agree more. Like, it's not scary. And I think the more we can discuss these new topics, or generally new subjects, they're not new but presented in a new way to society, I just find it exciting, the potential for the future. And I look at my children, I look at my life and how humans have been coming together on the internet, because I've lived sort of in an analog childhood and a digital adulthood. And I think that like the best is yet to come is sort of how I feel. And I look at this technology that you're explaining to me and teaching me about, and us about, to the listeners who are learning about this. And I find it so exciting, Arie. I think that it's really underrated what it is that you're doing there. And I want to really give you that credit, and to just let you know that a regular guy like me from Western Canada really appreciates the work that you and people like you, people on your team, are doing, because I'm excited. It's easy for me. I want to jump in, feet first, perhaps a little blindly, but knowing that maybe the deep end of the pool doesn't have as many pitfalls now as it once had, and might have a lot less in the future. What do you think the most exciting part about the future of the interconnected world?
Well, I think a lot of it, it's people nowadays feel like the world's getting harder, right? It's harder to be socially mobile. It's harder to get out of poverty. But I actually feel that in many ways, um, Web3, again, that term is kind of broad, but cryptography and a lot of these projects, they democratize things, they democratize data, they give people the opportunity to have something where you don't have to worry if I have a server that has hashes on there with my images and that sort of thing. I don't have to worry about losing access to it because Facebook doesn't like me.
You
Yeah,
can't be
but
banned.
or we banned or whatever it is. There are solutions for for preventing like hate speech, for example. What you have to do is you have to have filters where you know that person can still speak about whatever they want to, but if I don't want to listen to it, I can basically filter out that sort of speech. So there's a difference between like on social media right now. There's that idea of, well, should we delete this from the social media thing or should we keep it there? And to me, it's like, well, once it's been there, it's always there because it's data. Data can't disappear. Data just is. So all you can do is basically just not look at it, right? And so the question should be, well, how do I make it so that people who don't want to see certain things can't see certain things? Or you don't want to propagate certain things. So it's the whole concept of the fact that data is immutable and data is always there, and the idea of deleting it is not really a concept. It's just hiding it or taking it away from people's access. It kind of changes how it is. So that way you can control and own your own data in a much easier way than you could currently.
That really affects the comment culture of today. You know how the comment section has more validity, interest, and pull than the article itself in most regards. And I think it's going to hold our social circumstances to a higher level, and individuals and their conduct, I think, will certainly change over time as well, based on a lot of what the kind of work that you're doing and how this would come together. Because to me, I think it's really important. You've discussed this incredible base technology, and I want people to understand how it's going to affect them. Because at the end of the day, if we talk about that database, I want to apply it to something realistic. And so your company, XYO, I want to hear a little bit more about, because I'm looking at it here and I see there's a lot of sub-tabs and a lot of different information here. Particularly, you have a community, including social media, a lot of resources. What more can companies that might be listening, developers, project leads and individuals, what more do they need to know? What is the bit that I'm missing as this layperson trying to dig in and understand?
Well, so the community is probably more built around Coin right now. So Coin is our app. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that. So on our XY Labs website, you can see we have basically two major products. One's Coin and one's XYO, and they're actually tightly related. Coin uses XYO for a lot of its functionality, but Coin's a reward system, and so the idea on there is people do tasks, whether it's data tasks or it's physical tasks or whatever it is, and they get rewarded coin. That coin could be redeemed for things, TVs or crypto or whatever. And so that's the way we build out our nodes. That's why we have so many people who are fascinated with XYO, because it's an easy way to actually interact with XYO. It's kind of a little bit more of like a game, or there's some gamification aspects of it. It's kind of like a virtually almost augmented reality game where you can go to different places, you get different rewards, you can like stake different things. You can even like drop messages with XYO attached, or sorry, with Coin attached to it in the system, so somebody else can go and find it. So it's its own little metaverse in a weird sort of way is Coin, and people have much easier time jumping in with Coin and understanding how that is, because it's just a fun way of interacting with this world. And then from there, they learn about XYO, and then they go on to the XYO stuff. So I would definitely recommend installing the Coin app and
interesting.
seeing how that works.
Yeah, I didn't catch that, and I'm looking at it now. That wasn't part of the initial communications that I've had, and that little sub context menu didn't pop right out to me. So, wow, yeah, now that makes a massive more sense to me, because I was trying to draw this line between XYO and me. and my sister and my brother, my regular friends. And I see then how that app has sort of a front end example, a realistic purpose as far as having a reward system built into it, but it demonstrates how we can utilize the technology on a higher level while maybe funding the process of getting there along the way.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of our showcase there. We are actually developing an XYO app, which is a little bit more of a development tool where a person can see the actual XYO package and stuff like that going through there. Where a coin is much more of a consumer-facing product, and it's for people to just get used to the benefits of it and how it works. And so I think one of our challenges really is to expose that middle part there of between the protocol and how coin actually does it, so people can start building more of their own dApps and more of their own XYO tools that use the same sorts of things.
That's really exciting. And I think that's the kind of thing that people can take with them from this conversation is this coin app. Coinapp.co is the webpage address. And I'm interested to take a closer look at it. I'm going to give it a download today myself. I got my kids home here, and I might be going out for a little walk in the neighborhood, and we'll check it out. Is that available all over? I'm in Canada. It seems to me that it's likely available here to download. Is there restrictions that people should know about or accessibility?
It's available pretty much anywhere. I think in China, I think there's one of the two apps is not available there. So there's a few countries where it's not available, but it's available in the vast majority of the world. There are some features that are more evident in different parts of the world because we have different partners. So, for example, like the where's my product on a shelf question might not pop up for you in Malaysia, but it might pop up for you in the US, right? Because there's somebody who's willing to pay for that data. But if there's no one in your region who's willing to pay for that data, then you don't get that aspect of the interaction. So sometimes people will be using it in an obscure place in the world, and they'll be wondering, well, why aren't only some of the features available to me? It's because they're actually there. It's just they don't trigger unless there's actually somebody who wants that information or wants to reward you for it. So it's a little bit different from that standpoint. But it's it's definitely it's a fun way to use that and to kind of get involved in the data aspect of it. And also, it's for a lot of people, people don't want to go out and buy crypto necessarily. So it's a good way to get rewarded in coin and then be able to get XYO or ETH or Bitcoin redeemed on the app. So it's a way for people to kind of convert some of their time into crypto without having to risk any money.
And I love that. I really think that's fantastic. Is there a social media source or a place that a person can follow the progress and development of coin and XYO moving forward, and how they can stay in touch, if you will?
Yeah, well, if you go to the XYO.NETWORK website, there's some links on there for the social medias on there. And then on the Coin app website, the same thing there. I think Coin is usually Coin with us is our Twitter tag, for example. And XYO, I believe is official XYO is our Twitter tag on there. I'm also on Twitter. I tweet out stuff every once in a while and interact with people there too. So follow me on Twitter at Arie Trouw if you have a chance. That's where sometimes little previews of stuff come out from me sometimes before it does from the other one. So
absolutely,
I just get the urge sometimes to actually tweet stuff out. But it's definitely an interesting space, and we're really enjoying doing it. And it's nice working on a project that actually you feel will have significant impact in the world in the long term.
It's really amazing to me, Arie. That's at Arie Trouw. That's ARIETROUW for those interested. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for taking some time to talk to me. I'm really honored, to be able to meet individuals such as yourself and to try to break it down. I really want to just bring it to the masses so that folks can try to understand and bring together the pieces. And, individuals such as yourself with these high level projects and taking time to talk to someone like me is really, really quite amazing. Thank you very, very much, sir. I do appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it also. Thank you very much for having me on and for asking the questions. And it's great to have people in the world who are interested and fascinated by this.
It's awesome. Thank you very much. If you enjoyed this episode and you're looking for more, check out my Facebook page, Exploring the Metaverse, or you can email me at Gmail. That's ExploringTheMetaverse@gmail.com. As well, I just launched the podcast on a YouTube channel. It's early days, but check the Facebook group for the link. And that, you can guess it, is called Exploring the Metaverse. Thank you for listening. Until next time, have yourself a great day.